You are so loved here. Welcome to the Unconditional Journey podcast, where we will be exploring different ways to awaken to our life's purpose through a journey to self-love. Awakening the divine inside of us all along the way. We will explore different spiritual modalities, practices, and techniques to find deeper understanding. Some that we have tried and new ones that we want to learn. We'll be sharing our own experiences with you and having special guests on to learn new ways to heal on our journey for the mind, body, and spirit. Come along with us as we awaken the spirit and purpose inside.
Welcome, everybody, to the Unconditional Journey. My name is Shantae. This here is Debbie Mann. We have the awesome honor of having Jay Medina in the house. They are our dream guest to have on. It's been a very long, dreamy road, and we finally have them here. Thank you so much.
That's right. And I've been working with Jay for the last, from 2020 to 2023 and doing some healing, all that inner deep work. That's where it all started. And
thanks you guys for having me on. It's so exciting to be here with you. I know it's been a long road. We've been talking about this. I was like, oh, it's been 8 months probably, or a year. It's been a while trying to make this happen. So I'm really honored to be here. I'm so excited that you guys are doing this podcast. I think you both have so much to offer to the world. And yeah, I'm excited to weave in with you today.
Thank you. Yeah, cool.
Thank you so much. Well, let's go ahead and start diving into you found Jay.
Oh yeah, I was just really frustrated in my life, and I kept getting this message to find somebody, and I started getting the message throughout my life about like get the shaman, find a shaman, whatever, or a shamanic healer. And I just looked it up one day, and because I'm gay, I just always been drawn to the two-spirit thought. And I just looked up two-spirit shamanic healer, and you were the first one to pop up. And I wrote to you, and I thought it was great. I checked out your website, and I was like, this feels really great, and I want to try this. And it was just a deep, heavy road and a wonderful journey. And I remember my first session with you. I wrote you an email of apology about my ego showing up and feeling super defensive. And I was like, I'm really sorry. I was very egoic, and I was just like, I was caught off guard, and I knew that my ego showed up, and I was just like, I hope you still want to work with me. And you did, and we continued for about 3 years of that really good, deep work, inner child.
Yeah.
Ancestral healing, all of that, like road to healing inside out. It was great.
Yeah, it was amazing to be there and support you in that journey. You did, I mean, we did get to work together for a long time, which is something that's wonderful for me. I love getting to watch somebody through their whole process of transformation, and getting to witness you in your new life right now, and just, the person that you've become. That's the heart of what I do. That's what makes me so happy.
Cool. Thank you. And so, Jay, you want to share how you got into this healing work on your journey?
Yeah. Well, I guess I started doing energy work about 20 years ago. I was 23, I think, and I started martial arts. That was kind of the pathway for me. And my martial arts master was an energy healer. Now, I had no interest, less than no interest in healing of any kind. I just wanted to learn how to kick ass. But my martial arts master had designed our center as, I think she talked about it as, a healing arts center with martial arts as its heartbeat. So I got lured into healing. And for me, it was that really deep work. And, that kind of put me on the path to basically doing my own sort of work. For me, anger was my particular demon that really got worked through martial arts. And that I came from this very like macho Mexican family that, we didn't cry, we didn't really express emotion, we were just tough. And so there was a lot of unshed tears, a lifetime of unshed tears in there, and wounding and trauma that I had been like paying no attention to the stuff below the surface. So that was kind of started me on my healing journey. And then it really was that thing in that wounded healer way that, because I was fucked up and I needed healing, I just learned and figured out these things for myself. And through figuring them out for myself, I thought, this is awesome. And now I can do this for other people. And I really want to help folks go through the same journey that I did, but making it easier for them than it was for me. And that's really kind of what drives everything I do.
I love that that was your instinct, was like, I have to share this. I have to help people find this.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of, I think there is that heart of a teacher that, how can you not share the things, like how can we not make it easier for others? And, once you learn a thing, like you got to do something with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to share with everybody else, because you helped me so much. I'm a totally different person than I was 3-4 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my origin. And then, later on I ended up doing Reiki, and that was kind of a more focused, you know, deepening into energy work. And yeah, it's a long story. It's been 20 years. So there's a lot of parts of the tale in there. I'm not sure how much to share of that, but um, eventually through doing Reiki for a while, when I was like in my late 20s, that really helped clear my channel up so that I could start hearing and feeling my spirit guides more clearly. And, I'd always felt that they were there. I'd always kind of had this sense, but yeah, the channel wasn't clear. So, as I began to clear up, then my spirit guides kind of started coming in. And particularly I had like Black Jaguar. Jalonin is one of the sacred beings that we've worked with. She's like Corn Mother, Jaguar Mother in Mexica culture. And she started coming in then and saying, okay, now that you are here, we're not going to do this Japanese Indian system anymore, aka Reiki. We're going to do our ancestral ways, and I'm going to teach you directly how to do this work in a new and different way. And that was kind of how I shifted from sort of generalized energy work stuff into more shamanic work directly, and learning and deepening into my ancestral ways and practices, and learning from the spirits that eventually came together to found the Balansu Way tradition, which is what I teach and hold.
Yeah, your school, the Balansu Way, and you have an apprenticeship there?
Yeah, well, I worked with clients. I've been in private practice. I also got my master's degree along the way. So that was also kind of part of that unfolding, was getting a master's degree in counseling psychology. And part of that was having done energy work for a long time and seeing clients and feeling like I didn't necessarily have all the tools I wanted, seeing mental health stuff and thinking, oh, I don't really know, what do I do with this, or how do I engage with this? And wanting to kind of expand that tool chest. So, it also, so much of my work and my life is about bridging. I am a two-spirit person. I have, a mixed race. So I have like white family and indigenous family. And I'm always kind of standing at the crossroads of so many different places. So, one of those places being in bridging between indigenous ways and Western ways, and wanting to take the best of Western psychology and understanding of the mind and spirit, and being able to kind of bring both to my clients. Because part of what I found was when I did energy work with people, so I would move the things out of them, and then they would come back to me and they would have stashed shit in the same exact places. So it was part of my understanding that unless I helped people gain insight and change the patterning underneath the reasons why they were stuffing energy in the same places, they would just keep doing that. And sure, I could stay in business with them coming back to me endlessly, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted them to really gain traction to move through the things in front of them. And it also kind of helped me think about doing shamanic work a little bit differently in terms of doing it regularly, like therapy, not as often as therapy because it's also super intensive and has all this, other dimensions besides just the mental, but not just like, oh, come to me for a one-off soul retrieval and then go back and just go back to doing the same exact thing. So for me, I'm all about, I love efficiency and figuring out the best and easiest way to do something and bringing together kind of the best of all worlds in order to support people in that healing and growth. So over time of doing that work, I started noticing that I was basically attracting just healers, other healers. So doctors, nurses, psychotherapists, other shamanic workers, energy workers, basically any kind of healer that exists, I have worked with them over the last decade. And as I did that, I noticed there were these really consistent patterns with every person that came to me. So I started talking about this in a joking way as wounded healer syndrome, in a nod to Western psychology that likes to put uh, a name on all the things. So it's just kind of noticing a lot of those patterns, which is that every healer person we're all terrible at taking care of ourselves generally.
Yeah.
People struggle with boundaries. We will overgive until we are dead. And so much of the time I was working with various healer people in stages of burnout and overwhelm and exhaustion, and seeing that people had all these intuitive gifts, but they were really shut down because they were afraid of being more overwhelmed by being more open. And that was kind of, doing this work led me to seeing these kind of consistent patterns. And then being able to teach shielding was part of that kind of grounding foundational way of recognizing that my job, my purpose here as a being is to help create an army of healers. That's how I think of it. And, I can't help people find their purpose and find their way if they're overwhelmed or exhausted or burned out, And so recognizing that they needed some skills and tools. And after going through 3 years of therapy school, we had so much curriculum that was honestly really a lot of useless nonsense. And nobody at any point in time was like, here's how you take care of yourself and protect yourself so that you can live a sustainable life of service. So I was like, okay, this is some of the oversight that happens. And then of course, if you have wounded healers who haven't done their inner work, who are trying to help others, they're also setting up systems that are unhealthy as well. And that's how we have these kind of medical systems where people are overworking themselves to death. And it's just an insane system that is set up in any kind of institution. So I started kind of working with all these individuals and then watching that, it's like as I taught them shielding, there was like this developmental process that I watched everybody go through, but they were all going through it kind of alone. Even though I got to see 40 people at a time and kind of have my finger on the pulse of what all these people were doing and getting to see these same patterns happening and playing out, they were feeling alone in that, in part because what happens as a wounded healer is like once you start shielding and you start being like, oh, I have actual boundaries between myself and others, when I'm not taking on the fears, issues, sadnesses of other people, I don't feel the need to fix or change it quite so much. I can have that retain that energy to take care of myself, then start to say, oh wow, all these people that are around me that I thought were my friends, I'm starting to notice that I'm just providing a lot of emotional labor for them. And really, they should probably, most of them, be my clients. And it's just a thing that we do as wounded healers. We're like that rock in the center of chaos. We're the good listener. People are accustomed to leaning on us in a variety of ways. But then who's listening to us? Who's taking care of us, right? That's kind of where I come in. So in that process, I was like, well, people are right, the relationships that aren't actually reciprocal are dropping away for people, and they're feeling really alone. It's a very like lonely journey to go through this process. So I really wanted to help connect people together, and knowing that I did it alone and it was very challenging for me, and wanting people to be able to have that kinship of like, I got to listen to all of them and see those tides and those connections, but they weren't getting to have that. So I started to create my Healing the Wounded Healer program, and that was kind of like this foundational year-long program that I created 7 years ago or something. that basically kind of took all the things that I did with every client and put them into a course, and just was like, hey, come together in a small cohort of like 7 people so that you guys get to learn from each other and you get that kinship and connection. For me, that indigenous way of being is so much about community, and that thing of like, we're not individuals floating alone in a vacuum.
Yeah,
It is
right.
really together, connected in a web that we can shift and change so much more easily. And also just like renewing that right relationship with other beings and with the earth. So healing the wounded healer, that kind of program just kind of grew naturally out of the work that I was doing. And it was so profound for people to get to have that connection and to learn from each other, have support. I couldn't always be there for them, but they could be there for each other. And that was kind of the beginning, the foundation of the Balansue School. And by that point, I'd already been working with apprentices for a while, and just having people come in who, again, they were healers, had a purpose to help others. And it was also like a natural progression for me to go from helping them do their, again, foundational work, to then being like, oh, now your guides are calling you to doing this kind of work, or to being this kind of healer. Like, I can teach you how to do these things. And so, yeah, it was just, again, kind of all evolving out of a natural movement. And over time, it sort of coalesced more and more. And the spirit beings that I work with were very specific around like, this is what you need to do, and this is how to do it. And I think the Balansu Way is sort of unique in that it is a it is a like living tradition. So it's not the exact ways of the past, but it's also not, I think a lot of people just kind of grab things piecemeal here and there that they learn. It is really a whole system unto itself that the spirit beings have created, that our higher beings have, put in motion. And it's like honestly kind of a mystery to me always. I feel like I'm just here as the mouthpiece or the conduit for it, for this the spirit work that kind of wants to come down to earth, to be of service in this very critical time period in history. So that's kind of a little bit of overview about Balansu Way, and how I ended up doing teaching and coming into that like work. And then recently I've been, for a long time, I tried to do a very traditional indigenous apprenticeship model. And then I realized I had some challenges with that. And I realized that I have to, as Western people, we're really acculturated to a school model, that it's like we spend 20 years or, 18, depending on how long you're in school, it's somewhere between 18 and 30 years practically in school. And there's kind of no getting out of that. So it was kind of that thing of taking the best of my master's degree style training and indigenous models and kind of bringing them together. So now I've kind of codified it a little bit more. So I have my foundational Healing the Wounded Healer program, and that's for anybody who is called to healing work of any kind. So oftentimes people come to me and they're like, oh, I feel some call to be of service in the world, or I know I want to take care of people or to help, but they don't know necessarily what that is. It's like, I kind of joke about it as it's like the P and the princess under the P under like 9 and 20 eider downs, like when we've taken on as empaths, all the shit of other people around us through a lifetime, it's really hard to feel our stuff underneath all that crap. So part of shielding and part of doing the deeper work is peeling off all those layers to find that core of who we are and what we came here to do, and to support them in going off and like go fly and do what you came here. And for some people that will be like I had one of my original Healing the Wounded Healer students from that first cohort 7 or whatever years ago it was, just graduated from med school and is now a naturopath. I'm very proud of him. Miles, my baby.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of his path. And now he's kind of being able to weave some of the shamanic work back in. But for some people, they might be called to doing shamanic work like I do. And for them, I then have kind of a 2-year path of apprenticeship after that. So it looks kind of like a 3-year master's degree, essentially. And it's organized in that kind of way. And yeah, I now require people to have contact hours, similar to a master's degree, which no other program in shamanic work requires.
Yeah.
It really is that thing where I'm trying to kind of like elevate the field in a way around recognizing that sometimes the board oversight, Debbie, you're a massage therapist, right? We, with massage therapy, with psychotherapy, right? We have boards with medical things, right? We have requirements, we have oversight, and there's reasons for that. Some of that is annoying hoops to jump through, but some of that is there to protect people and to ensure a sort of quality of care, and that we're working in an ethical way and doing no harm. And I think a lot of times people with shamanic work, they're like, take a workshop and are like, I'm a shaman now, and they have no fucking idea what they're doing. And like, it's not ethical or good to turn people loose.
Yeah.
Doing that, it's like, I spent so many years and so many hours in school just to talk to people in therapy, and the work that we do with intuitive work where we're channeling for people and bringing stuff through for the past or the future, where we're doing energy work, which is very kind of invasive in your energy body, it has such a greater capacity to do harm if we are not well trained with that. And in ancient ways and in indigenous ways, it's like you might have spent a decade alongside your teacher before you even considered yourself ready to do that kind of stuff. Now people just think, oh, I learned a skill, now I can practice it. But I really think that we need to raise the bar a little bit in terms of shamanic work, and that's part of what I founded the Balance Way School to do.
That's incredible.
Yeah, very cool.
I love that you are taking the medicine of the earth and kind of bringing it into today's kind of three-dimensional approach. I think that's really, really helpful to get people's minds wrapped around like just how powerful and real the spirit is, and the type of healing that comes from shamanic work. So thank you. That's incredible.
Very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about, again, being able to bring those things together. And I certainly struggled for, it's like I've been teaching for a decade probably while I've been in private practice. But yeah, it's, I was like, oh, essentially I realized that I have to teach indirect indigenous ways in direct Western ways for people to kind of get those things. And that, part of my job is kind of teaching people about reciprocity, which we call aya'a in our tradition. And that thing of like, you can't just take stuff that you see or that you like and then just do what you want with it without permission, right? We have to have relationship, authentic relationship, permission from wherever we, are working with something, and extended time and training to know what the fuck we're doing. So yeah.
Yeah, it seems like these days, at least for myself, I've been just a melting pot of like, oh, this feels good. But it's wonderful to kind of give that balance of don't own something unless you've actually spent the time. And even then you don't really own it. You're just respectfully practicing.
Yeah. And, I work with a lot of white folks, and, I think of the Balansu Way as like a meta tradition. Part of the ways that we engage with shamanic work in ways that are not culturally appropriative is by each person being able to go to their own ancestral heritage. Shamanic practices and animism, it's the heart of all humanity.
Yeah.
Everybody has shamanic practices if you go back far enough. I think with a lot of Western cultures, it's just a lot farther back than it is for people who originate from the Americas. But it's there. And I think all of you guys as ancestors are calling to come forward as well. And that, part of what I do with the Blantu Way is I, through right relationship with my beings and my kind of ancestral traditions, I'm kind of modeling how to do that for white folks in a good way, and supporting them. Also, I kind of like make all of my students do a lot of, we just came through a lot of our ancestral work. I love Dia de Muertos, which we just kind of have honoring our ancestors holy days in our tradition. And so we spend kind of all last month with my cohort currently sort of working with ancestors. I make them ask their grandparents and people, do some ancestry work, like genealogy tests, do research about their cultures, read about their kind of myths or history, that's really important so that everybody is grounded in right relationship with their own ancestry. And that's how we can kind of come to the table to share things in a way that is reciprocal. Again, that it's not kind of taking something that doesn't belong to somebody, but that we're sharing. And in that way, we can weave together a new culture and a new way where we can bring the best of all of our cultures and all of our ancestors forward.
So after someone does their kind of research into their ancestry, how would you suggest kind of supporting that connection to kind of learning from your ancestors?
I just did mine actually.
Oh, tell us about yours.
I am like from Ireland and Germany and I think English, but also sub-Saharan African and Caribbean.
Interesting.
That's like 3%, but I don't know. Is that in most people? Because that's like the
I don't
most.
know. I feel like there's like a little bit of, I don't know. I also have that kind of I have a vast sprinkling in my ancestral tree because I have a lot of mixing, but yeah. And what I find is that for most people, there is one culture or one set of ancestors that call to them most strongly.
Yeah.
And because we're also working with the spirits and the person's spirit guides and their ancestors, they're really directing and guiding the work that we're doing together. So their spirits, whether it's their guides or their ancestors, will come forward while we're working and say, hey, look at this, you need to be working on this, like research about druids and sacred trees, or like Bridget comes in and is like, I want to teach you about how to work with the flame and the water, So for me, we work very directly with the spirit people, and that's, for me, that is kind of that heart of shamanic work of going directly and learning from the spirits. And my job is just kind of facilitating that and helping while the person is expanding and strengthening their intuitive gifts. I'm there to be kind of a translator in between them and their spirits. But eventually the point is that they expand that capacity, and then they don't need me to do that anymore. Then they have those direct ancestral teachers. And the great thing about the Balansu Way is, if we were all just doing our own thing, we would be kind of each off in our own corner, right? And we wouldn't be able to be a community or connect together. So with the Balansu Way, we have these practices in the center that are things like shielding. That is honestly just shit that I came up with my spirit guides and stuff that I learned in modern day world with the assistance of my people, so that we all kind of can stand in that I give permission to be like, okay, this is the stuff that just came through directly from the spirits for me, so I can give that to everybody, and that becomes something that we can all share, and that kind of holds us together. Well, each of us has one foot in those central practices, and then we have one foot out in our own ancestral ways that might be very different and divergent, but that allows us to have both individuality and community. And for me, that's also the heart of what I love. So I also founded a spiritual community called Tribe 15 years ago, and that actually kind of came, I guess, I woven in with my healing journey and my work in supporting people. But yeah, being able to have the kind of both the modern and the ancient, and everything I do, I talk about as reweaving the hoop of ancient and indigenous wisdom for a modern world. That's basically my whole jams, and everything is all about weaving that again.
Yeah, that's great. I think the two major things I use daily, or I try to use daily, is the shielding for sure. And that took me a while to get into a daily practice. And like in the beginning, I would just shield right before our sessions just to be clear. And I'd be like, oh shit.
You're like, oh no, Jay's
gonna
gonna
shield right now. Stop, drop, and shield. That's what Jay would say. You just gotta stop, drop, and shield whenever you got shit on you.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's a habit. Changing habits are hard, and I think it's that way that none of us were raised to know how to do these things. And it's like we had parents, hopefully, who taught us to like brush our teeth every day, but nobody was like, oh, clear your energy field, and that has to be kind of part of our daily hygiene. So I talk about it as just a new hygiene practice that we have to develop. But yeah, making this space and time sticking with the practice. It takes some time to kind of sort it out. And that's part of why I'm there in a consistent way to help people really um, drop in with that, and hold their feet to the fire to be like, Debbie, have you been shielding?
I've been doing it.
And then I'd feel shitty and I'd be like, oh man, I feel crappy. I'd just be like depressed or whatever. And I would just be like, I should probably shield. And I would like go on for a couple days and not shield. And then I'd finally be like, oh, I'm just gonna shield. And then like I would shield and it'd be like hard to get through it. And then I always know if it's hard to get through, if it's not smooth, then I gotta do it a second time.
Yeah.
And then the second time I'd be like, oh my God, why did I wait so long?
I mean, that's the great thing about it, is that it is kind of a self-correcting thing, because, it's like, if you've never been clear, if we don't ever know what it's like to not have all that crap inside of us,
Or you
we
do
don't know the difference, but the more you do it and the clearer you get, the more you can instantly feel when you're like, fuck, this does not feel good. Let me stop, drop, and shield.
saying like, oh, sometimes I do it multiple times a day, and I do that now. I do it multiple times a day.
Yeah. And then it becomes just like breathing, it becomes something that is a life way. And again, because I stick my hands into people's energy fields and deal with entities on behalf of other people, I just deal with so much more. So it is a thing that I'm just kind of tending all the time, and I can tell when stuff is coming in. And so I just can re-up it, and we start with like shielding, reactively a little bit, where we're like, oh fuck, but we get to being where we shield proactively at least once, twice a day, and then it just becomes a life way.
It really is a way to like put that bubble around you and like watch other people go through their stuff, and you're just like, I'm staying in my boat, which was the second valuable thing that Jay taught me. Stay in your boat, Debbie. Can you explain stay in your boat to people?
Sure. I mean, so I talk about it as wounded healer syndrome, but it is kind of codependence really at a heart. And and that place where, as empaths, if we immediately sponge on everything from everyone in our environment, first of all, we ended up that way because invariably most of us had a parent, one or more parents, who were addicted, mentally ill, or abusive in some way. Or increasingly, I'm seeing young people who had a loving parent, but they had a parent who was like that, and those codependent patterns are getting passed down without the kind of trauma that most of us experienced firsthand around it. But so, if we don't take the stuff on, as I said, we don't feel that need to fix it. But so often, as I kind of talk about where we start in our lives, is I talk about it as like we're in a little rowboat in a lake. And it's like we see a person in our life in front of us in the water, like splashing around. And we don't even stop to say, oh, do you need help? We're just like, oh my God, you need help. And we jump in the water to try to save them. And then we're in the water trying to like shove the life vest on them, being like, this is what you need to be doing if you would just fucking listen to me. And it's like, everyone who I talk to laughs at that, because they're like, oh yeah, I've been there. I know what that is like. How annoying and frustrating it is that people just don't listen to our advice when we know exactly what they should be doing. But so then we're like in the water, and it's a statistical reality that if you're trying to rescue a drowning person, people who are trying to rescue often get drowned themselves. So once we're in the water and we've taken on responsibility for someone else's life, then we're just trying to keep our head above water and their head above. Well, we're getting dunked under, we're taking it in, we're exhausted, we're like freaking out alongside them, and nobody's good in that situation. And we don't actually help the person. They resist us with all their might generally. So, and then all it does is it exhausts us, and like we're going under with them as well. So what I try to do is be like, okay, we have to figure out how to stay in the boat, get back in the boat. And how do we do that, right? The first step is shielding, being able to actually tell, this is where I end and you begin, and being able to start to, again, not taking on that stuff, which means we don't feel that same urge. But, it's like when somebody's in the water, that we start to, before we jump in, we say, do you want help? Not do you need help, because we know they might need it. But if they don't want it, we cannot force that life vest on them. And, it is kind of that tough love a little bit, but really it kind of came through for me when I was younger, and I was, energetically doing work for somebody that I cared about, and I could just feel their stuff that was in the early days when I was figuring out what chords were and how those worked. But I was kind of like moving stuff for them. And I was like, well, I thought I was doing good. I'm not taking stuff on, I'm just like shifting some things. And his guides came to me and they were really mad because they were like, Jay, you're helping, but it's not actually helping. You're doing this because it's hard for you to watch him suffer. But he actually needs that suffering because that stubborn bastard will not change his ways until he sinks to the bottom of the lake. And only then will he have some traction to push off of that. While you're trying to keep his head above water, you're actually prolonging his suffering. And when I saw that and I was like, oh, it really got to me that I was like, oh, I have to be willing to let people suffer from the higher place, of being like, I don't want to interrupt their learning and growth and get in the way of that, which is sometimes like people really do need to hit rock bottom sometimes in order to do that. So we figure out how to stay in the boat, ask if they want help. If they're like, no, I don't want help, then we don't help. And we can say, okay, I'm going to throw you the life ring. It's here. And instead of jumping in to do things ourselves, we're like, oh, here's a number for a therapist if that would be helpful for you. Or, do you even want any advice to think about a number for a therapist? No? Okay, I'm here. If you want to grab on and take responsibility for your own life and you need some help in that way, then I will pull you in, but I'm not going to be in the water drowning alongside trying to rescue you. So if I stay in the boat that way, right? Yeah, Debbie's like, yes. um, if I stay in the boat that way, then while somebody else is thrashing around deciding whether they want to take responsibility for their life or make any changes, I can be reading a book calmly, and taking and enjoying the sunset. And, because it's like generally we're in the water, we don't have the capacity to say, oh, do I feel like I have the capacity for this today? We're just in panic survival mode. So this is kind of the heart of how I help people, again, shift out of some of those patterns so that we can have the energy, time, and capacity to take care of ourselves, right?
Right.
I am mind blown. I had never even thought of empathic nature as codependency.
Oh, I didn't know codependency was an addiction until recently.
Man, I consider myself an energetic swiffer. Like I can't help it.
Yeah.
I'll walk into somebody's house and just walk away, just being like, damn it.
Yeah.
I did it again.
Absolutely. And it's it's not intentional, right? It's just we are these sponges. And so that's kind of part of why we do this stuff. But and again, nobody was there to teach us how to do this. We all kind of struggle through the best we can. But yeah, it's definitely, helps us to in that way of taking care of ourselves and to undo some of those pathways, because as children, essentially we learned that we had to take care of one or more of our parents in order to receive love. And if we could absorb any of their difficult stuff or be so psychically attuned to them, we could head them off at the pass, then we were okay. So those patterns are it's a survival strategy we learned in childhood, or our parent learned in childhood and passed on to their children. That if we hyper attune to the feelings and needs of others, then that's the way to be. But in doing that, we sort of tend to suppress our own feelings and needs. And it's often hard for wounded healers to be in touch with those. And that's kind of, again, part of peeling off all those layers of other people's crap through shielding and through doing that work, Again, for me, it was like finding the most efficient way where it's like, oh yeah, I could do energy work on you every time you come. But if you do energy work on yourself, essentially 14 times in the 2 weeks between when and when I see you again, you're going to be exponentially so much clearer. And also if you stop taking it on, and we can actually dig it out backwards through time remarkably quickly after a lifetime of taking the stuff on.
Incredible. Does this feel like a nice segment to experience?
Yeah.
Sure. Yes.
Take us through one.
Yes. So, okay. A little bit of conceptual stuff. So we talked a little bit about human stuff and the reasons that we shield in terms of human energy. But I also have to say that the world is not all love and light as New Age kind of makes us think. There are, in shamanic work, we recognize there are a lot of dark beings also out in the realm of spirit, which we call entities. So, and entities are beings who are not human, have never been human. They're just other things. I kind of think about them as predators, like a mosquito, for instance, that preys upon us and feeds off of our, entities feed off of our negative, difficult or negative energies or emotions. And they attach to us like a mosquito, kind of, in order to feed off of us. So, this might be a leap for some people, but this is just one of the realities that I deal with paddling around in the realm of spirit. So I teach 2 layers of shielding. One layer is for human stuff. One layer is for protection from entity stuff. So a lot of times, sensitive beings have been like, oh, I felt creepy things around when I was a kid, or I got freaked out about stuff. And, it's like the monsters under the bed are real.
Yeah.
So, this is the way that we kind of protect off, on both levels so that people can open up to their fullest sensitivity, to their fullest gifts, and not be afraid of either being overwhelmed by taking on more human stuff or having the darker, creepy things freak you out or, create these spirals, like emotional spirals. Okay. And
If you're driving, make sure you stop this right here and start again later.
Yeah. And also I want to say that if you can do your own energy work, now is a good time to stop. I always, when I'm working with clients, I always do energy work on them first to clear them out as much as possible before doing shielding, because we're running energy through ourselves. And if we're all full of junk and gunk, then it doesn't flow as well. Now, if you don't know how to do it and you don't have access to a person, then try it yourself. Your mileage may vary, but some work is better than no work. So that's also some caveats with it. In terms of entity stuff and just getting some conceptual framework for the shielding, it's both very simple and very technical. It's like a technical piece of like, there's lots of little gears in it. Each piece is really important. So getting the kind of concept around entities are really persistent. And one thing, after battling them for many years, I came up with many different layers. I'm always constantly updating and changing shielding depending on what I'm dealing with. It feels like an arms race sometimes with entities. But, I eventually kind of came to this thing where we can't kill them. It kind of creates these karmic repercussions, as I discovered when I got really mad one time and sort of energetically imploded one. And it was like whacking a beehive, and just all holy hell rained down on me because of it. So not a good idea to do that. So we just have defensive strategies only. But with that, I think about uncreating them. And so I discovered this kind of loophole in terms of being like, how do we manage to get clear of entities, but we can't kind of do that final solution. So asking the universe to just asking source to recall them. And it's like hitting the reset button. So just asking them to be recalled and undoing basically anything, thinking about it moving backwards through time. So it's a little bit of a conceptual thing that I like to explain a little bit first so that people understand what we're doing. And then we can walk through it. All right, Debbie, do you have any thoughts or additions about
Chords?
shielding?
Can you explain chords a little bit?
Yes, great, good idea. So as I mentioned, when I was younger and first figuring out how to shield, and I felt very proud that I created some kind of bubble around myself, I got hit with these intense emotional stuff that I was like, this is not mine. How is it getting through? I have a shield up. And that was how my guides were like, hey, look at these cords. And that the cords were like these agreements that I had with another person. For me, in my intuitive vision, they look almost like umbilical cords, and that we can have cords in many different spots. And they basically are just ways that we actually exchange energy and actually exchange emotion. So when we feel love for someone, there's actual energy flowing between us. When we feel hate for someone, hate makes very strong cords, right? That's also flowing back and forth between us. So that was kind of how I discovered working with cords. And I just came up with filtering the cords with my guides, with their help. A lot of people do kind of cord cutting, but most of the cords that we have that we exchange the most stuff through are people that we want to stay connected to, like our partners or parents or children, or, close friends, that's where we take on most of the stuff, and it just flows right through them. And if you cut them, they'll just regrow back because we're still feeding them. So I think I'm the only one I know that does this kind of cord filtering thing, and that feels like it's so much of what does it, because again, it's like we take on most of that stuff from our close relationships that we want to maintain and can't really cut those cords. So that's also kind of part of the shielding process. Again, of the various little things I learned along the way that I was like, oh, I got to add this in. Wow, that really helps. So everything that I do and I teach is all battle tested in the field and stuff that I do every day.
Yes, I swear by it all the time.
All right, let's shield. And my guides and spirits have said that they're going to help activate this for anybody who's listening, and kind of inviting your spirit guides to help you move through this. All right. Let's take a couple of deep breaths. Inviting yourself to drop in, feeling your body, allowing your body to be heavy, sinking down into your seat. If you're laying down, to the ground beneath you, coming into presence. And we're going to imagine, as if turning on a faucet, a waterfall of light that comes down from source. And we're going to ask this energy to uncreate any entities that may be attached to us. Usually they're attached to the back of the head and neck. So we're going to invite that energy to rush down through the crown of our head and pop out into a bubble all around you. And if there were any entities attached to you, they would be immediately uncreated. And we imagine that being dragged backwards through time, returning to the source, as if they never existed in the first place. And you're going to invite that energy to flow in, to fill into the bubble, to fill in every cell of your body, every particle of your spirit, to uncreate anything entities have left behind, any blackness or goo, and to uncreate any thoughts, feelings that they may have stirred up, returning you to a set point before they ever bothered you. And now we're going to invite that energy of uncreation to flow out through all of your cords up to the edge of any other person. And you don't have to know what those cords are, where they are. Just ask that to be so and trust the energy to do it. And to uncreate any entity stuff in the cords, and to keep any entities from coming through the cords, because sometimes they do try to move through us from unshielded people. And tuning this entity creation shield, that if any entities try to attach to you while you have the shield, that they'll immediately be sent back to source. Now allowing that to run and to hold on its own, just like diverting a river, it's going to keep flowing because it's coming from source energy. So now we're going to have another second layer of shielding that's going to go inside the entity layer. And they can flow right past each other because they exist in different dimensional realms. So allowing the entity one to just run on its own. Now we imagine a white light flowing down from spirit, again, like a giant waterfall rushing through the crown of your head, through your body, out through your feet, and down into the earth. And invite that to cleanse and clear anything in its path. And again, just allow it. You don't have to make it. Just get out of the way and let it flow. Trust it. And stay with that until you can feel it flowing clear and strong. Just trust and allow. Let it be as big and as powerful as it can be. And when it is clear and strong, shift it to the right side, flowing out the right foot only. And up from the center of the earth, you can imagine a geyser of green earth energy that shoots up through your left foot, up the left side of your body, and out the top of your head on the left side. And knowing that that can flow just as strongly up as down because there's no gravity in the realm of spirit. So let it rush strong through you and allow your body to absorb any of that grounded earth energy that it needs as it's flowing through you. So feel that white light down the right side, green light up the left side. And when both of those channels are running clear and strong, release their separation, allow them to become one channel. The green light and white light effortlessly flowing past each other because there's no gravity or friction in the realm of spirit either. Making a perfect conduit between earth and sky. And with those umbilical cords of light above and below continuing to run, imagine popping that out into a bubble around you inside your entity layer. And as we do that, we're going to ask that and imagine that we put gravel and sand into all of our cords on the human level. That's Earth's natural filtration system. And we're going to program the shield and the cord filters that they're not going to allow any difficult or negative energies or emotions to pass through in either direction, either from us to others or others to us. And this is how we also become responsible for our own stuff. Now that you've sealed yourself inside your own bubble, we're going to run a drain like a whirlpool beneath your feet. And I'm going to invite you to release anything you've taken on that doesn't belong to you. Just feel that suck down into the earth where she can compost that, reclaim it, turn it back into clear energy. Keep draining. Keep draining anything that's not yours until you come to a moment where that seems enough. Knowing that we can only do this so much in a given time, and that each time you do this, you're going to invite yourself to release to deeper and deeper layers. So again, you can release this more and more backwards through time. And now I'm going to invite you to release your own difficult and negative energies or emotions. Good. And now again, because we've diverted these bigger energies, just like diverting a river, they're going to keep running without our conscious attention. So we're going to release them, tell them that they're going to stay up until the next time we do this again, which you might give it till from morning to night or once a day. Really, these days, I'd suggest doing it morning and night if you can, but once a day is better than nothing. So go ahead and release that, knowing that it will hold, and invite yourself to return to this time and place.
Thank you so much.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, how are you guys feeling?
Amazing.
Yeah.
I have not had
Sparkly.
a lot of time to get to drop in at all. So I'm just like was enjoying the imagery that was coming in and feelings. Thank you.
Even when I'm
Yeah,
feeling
you're-
good, if I do that, I feel sparkly afterwards. Just super clear and flow. I noticed you were using the green light from the earth.
I know. I knew you would notice that. Again, like I said, I'm changing it all the time. I used to use red,
Curious.
and that was kind of like that volcanic earth energy. But I found that I think green is more soothing to people. and evokes earth energy more than I think that kind of red that used to kind of connect more to a primal space. But again, this is, like I said, always changing and updating it little by little. So figuring out what works for people and what's helpful. I also want to say too that there's a reason that I have people separate when they draining out other people's stuff and then your own. For pretty much everybody that I do this with, it's shocking to them that most of the stuff that they're feeling and carrying is not theirs. And it's
Right.
part of helping people distinguish between this is mine, this is others. So it's also a good practice of, part of that is becoming aware of our energy field and what we're taking on and dealing with, so that we can be, again, empowered to make decisions and be in charge of our own field.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm so glad I got to do this with you guys today, and I appreciate you inviting me to be here. And I really try to teach shielding to everyone. I think it's just an amazing tool and technique that has changed my life, that has changed other people's lives. And I can't teach it to everyone in one by one the way I have been doing it in the past. So I'm excited that hopefully this will allow more people to have access to it. And the only thing that I will say is that, again, this is a technique that is kind of in indigenous ways, that it's like it needs spirits to kind of activate it and do that in a good way, and that it's not something that people can take and teach themselves. So if you want to teach it, like, refer people back to this recording or to me, or just people in the Blancouet who've learned it in the proper way through the spirit channels and through right relationship with the spirits who work with this and who manage this. So that's my only kind of caveat, is don't take it and run in that way. Like, do it through indigenous right relationship with me and with the Blancouet, as Debbie did today.
Yes. So excited. Can you want to tell everybody where to find you?
Yeah, I have a couple of websites. I have my personal website, which is just jmedina.com. That's my name. So that's kind of where Two Spirit Shamanic Healing, that was my private practice. I'm still working with clients, but more these days I'm working with students, and I'm focusing more on teaching my students to work with clients and overseeing them than doing the direct work myself. So my other website is schoolofshamanicarts.com, and that's kind of our Balansi school. So that has all the information kind of about our programs. And I actually recently also uploaded audio of me doing a shielding recording with the creek in my land that I live on in the background. So it's sort of a semi-professional recording that is embedded in the website. So you can go there if you just want to listen to the shielding. Not that people shouldn't come back to your podcast and listen to it here, but just adding more tools, again, trying to make it more accessible to as many people as possible, because we really, really need it right now in our world.
Yes, for sure. Thanks,
So
Jay.
Thank you.
It is.
Yes, thank you so much.
Right
This
on.
is super fun. I'm so glad we made the time, and thank you so much for all the work and effort you put into, like, reaching out to me and trying to schedule and bring all of our schedules together. And yeah, I'm excited to hear more about what you guys are up to and just watch this unfold. And Debbie, I love you.
I love you,
It's been
Jay.
so amazing getting to watch you unfold. You are such a perfect example of the power of this work when you actually really take it to heart, and you work the tools as they are. It really can transform your life.
My life is like totally, I did a 180 after working.
Yes, you did.
I did. Like, I'm in magic land now.
Yeah, I love
Like,
hearing
everything I manifest comes true. It's amazing.
that. There it is.
Thanks so much for your work. I appreciate you so much. I always have gratitude for you, Jay.
I know. And let's talk again soon. I miss you.
All right.
It's been a long time.
I know. Right on. Maybe Chantel and I will come to your school.
I would love to. I am very interested.
Yes. Yeah. I'm happy to talk with you more about that. I mean, the other thing that I mentioned, which is that, so I talked about the kind of in the Balantu, we have the kind of shamanic apprenticeship track, but we also have a different track, which I talk about as an intuitive arts practitioner. And that's for people who aren't necessarily going to be shamanic in nature, who are people who are doing like Reiki or tarot or psychic work or mediumship, things that don't also have typically extended training or oversight or community, right? People are just kind of thrown off in the wilderness to do whatever the fuck, and we don't really know what we're doing. We all kind of struggle on our own. So it's there to kind of create that community for people whose work isn't necessarily, what I'm doing exactly. And I work with some other folks who are very skilled in doing that, to kind of help support folks who have that particular pathway. Yeah. If that might be interesting.
I'm working on that psychic world stuff.
Yeah. I know that's kind of more where you guys are aligned, right? So that's kind of why I was throwing that out there.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you.
You are all loved so very much, and enjoy your journey.
Be blessed.
Be blessed. Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
We ask our listening community to help us reinforce the energy shield of our intention, to reach out wider and brighter. Love energy is important to share. We ask you to bring light, love, and grace into the world. Please help us share this message, whether verbally or energetically.